Actually, they took away all my 3 kids because my daughter fractured her left arm. She has a spiral fracture. At that time, she was only 9 months. But there's evidence against daycare that they mistreated her and they handled her in a roughly manner. So, but the lawyer is telling me to get a medical expert on this case. So we're not planning to reunify me with the kid. But this evidence is already in the licensing. It's on public already.
Okay, so this is what I want you to do. Call. Let's talk to Marlene in California. Marlene, did you have a story to tell or a question to ask?
A question to ask, Vincent. I'm listening by your office with Judy.
Okay.
I just have a question, David. Actually, they took away all my 3 kids because my daughter fractured her left arm. She has a spiral fracture. At that time, she was only 9 months. But there's evidence against daycare that they mistreated her and they handled her in a roughly manner. So, but the lawyer is telling me to get a medical expert on this case. So we're not planning to reunify me with the kid. But this evidence is already in the licensing. It's on public already.
Okay, so this is what I want you to do. If you're represented by my office, I want you to call the office today and make an appointment to have a phone conference or an in-person meeting with me so that we can go over your case step by step.
Okay. I will be doing this right now.
I remember your case.
Yeah.
But I don't have the file in front of me, and I don't have the details. But if you're a client, I want to give you that, that attention, and I want you to schedule a meeting so that we can discuss what's going on.
Okay, then I will. Thank you very much, David.
All right, thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, Brian. The call before this one, what did you think about that call?
Well, I remember her call in originally, and I remember almost hitting the ceiling when I heard what she had to say. But one of the things that I have noticed with a lot of my clients who are struggling with CPS is something that I was kind of noticing with her, which is that she had a lot of times they focus on things that they have no control over, like the decision of the court in regards to allowing that father to have to be able to make decisions in the lives of his kids, and that's absolutely unfair. And it is frustrating, and it is upsetting, and absolutely keep working to try and address that in whatever capacity that you can. But in the meantime, try to focus on the things that you do have control over, because that really isn't something that you can do about anything about at this point. They've made that decision. So what can you do right now to try and make sure that you can get the kids back, that you can provide that home for them, that you can address whatever issues that the courts are saying they can't, that they don't, that they're saying is why they don't want you to have those kids. Because that's where your energy can be most effective and most powerful and most satisfying for you, is being able to focus on those things over which you do have control, and trying to identify the things that are out of your control, and just to be able to set those aside and say, I can't worry about these because it's just going to take energy away from the things that I do have control over.
Yeah, but you know what keeps crawling back into her mind and mine? This guy killed my daughter.
Yeah.
Like, how can he possibly have any rights?
Right.
I guess the one consolation is that he'll be in jail probably the rest of his life.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, there's absolutely a lot of grief that you have to go through in a situation like that. A lot of times clients may even struggle with something like PTSD. And so that's another reason why it's important to maybe talk with somebody who is, who is a professional therapist who can provide some of the support that you need in order to overcome that trauma. Because so often with these cases too, is that trauma, it's not just something that's bothering you, it comes into the courtroom with you. And it oftentimes you're emotionally triggered by that trauma when you're in the courtroom. And that can often unfairly make judges and lawyers look at that and say, oh, well, he or she is not, mentally capable, and emotionally capable of taking care of, this child. Because look at how much her emotions are coming up during the middle of the court right now. Look at how angry he is. And so being able to find a way to resolve that trauma, to heal that trauma, to be able to come into the courtroom and be able to be emotionally collected is going to be one of the best things that you can do for your kids and for yourself as you're going through that process.
In her particular case, because we've talked to her before many times off the radio, that's going to be very hard to do, and it's going to be time consuming.
Yeah.
As I sit here today, if that were to happen to me, I'd probably be going, bonkers, in the same situation. Like, how could this possibly be happening?
Yeah. And it does take effort. When you go into those situations and you have that feeling and that unfairness, you do have to mindfully say to yourself, okay, I feel those emotions coming up right now. Let me go ahead and just take a moment, notice where it is that I'm feeling it. Let me do some of the breathing to kind of bring myself back down so that I can be present and not get emotionally flooded. A lot of times too, with things like with the death of a family member, it's being able to just kind of, find a way of reframing it and saying, okay, this was unfair and this is very sad and I'm very unhappy about it. And right now, the only thing I can do for you to show my love for you, my daughter, who has been taken from this world in such a violent way, is to fight to get your kids back, to be able to fight and give them a loving home, and to be able to do, to try and help them undo some of the damage that dad has caused in whatever way that I can, through therapy, through talking with them, through providing them a narrative of what their life can look like, what it would have looked like if this hadn't happened, all of those things. Those are the things that you can do, is to just basically say, I'm doing this for you. So it gives a way to just reframe that so that that you can take it away from this thing that I have no control over and putting it onto this thing that I do have control over. And some great tools and tips for helping people who've been through this kind of trauma. EMDR, it's a form of therapy. Look for somebody who can do EMDR, or you can try to look for somebody who does what I use is the trauma model. It's very similar to, it's an offshoot of EMDR. It's called Comprehensive Resource Model, and it helps basically care for those parts that are hurting, so that you don't have to so that they don't feel like they have to keep reminding you of it.
Right.
And yeah.
Okay. Hey, Brian, we got to take another break right now. This is The Secret.
Sure.
How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm attorney Vince Davis with my co-host Brian Hamilton. We're going to be right back after these messages.